for clothes and jewelry and all of that stuff. So if
For
we
clothes.
went shopping, it was for somebody's birthday or something that we needed for the house or Christmas or a gift for a wedding or things like that. We didn't shop a lot.
Right. Where in clothes, I assume, were mostly hand-me-downs. So,
No, I remember giving away clothes that my children had outgrown to other families, or or give them to an organization like the churches or something like that. There was a lot of that type of thing. Not the food banks like we have now. I don't remember any of that.
was there even much like unemployment back then? Like
Nowhere,
more,
nowhere near what there is now.
no, nowhere near as many homeless. Like,
No,
we even heard of someone being homeless.
no. And might be someone that's disabled or something like that, but churches and neighbors and people like that looked out for other people.
Would you say that's changed now?
Yes,
Definitely.
yes. Although there's a lot of things like the food cupboards and all of those things, but maybe they're getting back into it more now. The 80s were good times.
Good times,
That's
such
what I
as
remember.
like fun, or good times as in
Money.
like money. So things were cheaper.
Well, no, but people were earning more and businesses were prospering, and like our business here did well in the 80s. And
Was this business around in the 60s?
oh yes,
How did that go? Like,
it was a living. It was a decent living. And if you lived on a potato farm, sometimes you'd have a good year, sometimes you'd have a bad year, and you just went with the flow. If it was a bad year and nobody got a new automobile or a new piece of equipment or stuff like
was a new automobile like common for you? Unlike now? Well, unless you're
no,
grampy.
no. Quite often, Graham and Gramp would get a new automobile, and Dad and I inherited theirs when they would get a new one. But for us to go out, there might be a new pickup for the men, but for us to go out and
But
buy,
you got one every year.
no,
Well,
probably every 2 or 3 years.
it's still a lot different than now, because now they make cars and trucks to last you much longer.
Oh
but,
yeah,
but also people don't have enough money to go do that
that's
now.
right. But automobiles, I don't know what a truck was. Probably, a pickup. I don't know, $3,000-4,000, maybe $5,000 to
For the
buy a
newest,
really
latest,
nice,
and greatest.
to buy a nice car.
So it was
But we weren't making the wages that people make now.
right. Well, it's also different now. You make the wages they make now, but also look at the economy. It's $4 for a gallon of
It's
gas.
ridiculous. Probably it was 40 cents, 50 cents, or something like that back then.
Were people experience like hardships now? Was it hard to fill up the trucks or fill up the cars?
I don't think no, because I think people were just making a decent living, because for one thing we had the mill. They employed people from surrounding towns, not just our town, but they came from all over. And a lot of the people, if their parents worked in the mill, when they graduated from high school, that's what they did, unless they were college bound. People didn't go to college as often as they do now. It wasn't pushed that
Right.
you had to have a college education.
What would you use a college education around here now? Well, not now, but like back then for would
A doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, a professional person. And I think a lot of the, like plumbers and electricians and things like that, they worked as an apprentice under somebody else, and it was just so different.
Was this business, the potato farming business, was this a good business back
Yes,
in
it
the
was.
60s
Yes, it was.
to get into?
Well, to go right out and start it on your own, I would say no. But if you were born into it, like your grandfather was, and worked with his father and built it up and so forth.
How did he get into it? He just started planting and
You
selling?
mean Grampy Rowland?
Mm-hmm.
Grampy Rowland's family moved here. I couldn't tell you the years or anything like that, but I think he was born here. I know well enough he was, but he was, you know, a kid. And they had cows and potatoes, milk cows, and a few acres of potatoes. That's what a lot of farmers did. And when your grandfather and I were married in '56, they still had cows and potatoes. And they decided they had to do one or the other, so they sold the cows.
Why'd they decide that? Just because?
Well, the cows, you're tied to them. You've got to milk those cows twice a day. And when that potato crop is ready, you've got to get that out of the ground too.
So
it's kind of
it was less hassle for
yeah,
them.
to have just one business. And of course, a lot of people, like the Veazys, did just cows, and we did just potatoes.
Plus, also, if you think about cows, you have to do all the extra for their food.
Yeah.
And
And you could go on vacation for a few days, but if you're a cow farmer, somebody's got to be
yeah,
here.
in charge.
You've got to milk that cow, but the potatoes will stay in the ground. Let Mother Nature rain on them.
Right.
I was trying to think when we started irrigating.
Could you see more new technology as it progressed, or is it just like
very slowly though? I mean, like the improvement on the harvesters.
not like now? Now
Oh
it's
no!
upgrades almost
Oh,
every.
just instantly. The machinery is just so huge, and every year they've got to do something different and
Mhm.
bigger, and
better.
yeah, no, it was
Faster.
much slower. Life wasn't such a hectic pace as it is now.
Would you say people like were more happy in that time?
I think so, because they weren't so pressured.
Right. If you could go back in time, is that what you would do? Go back and live in the 60s, 70s,
No,
80s?
I would go back to the 80s. The farm was doing well, and we were beginning to, you know, have more material things. But, and it didn't seem to be a struggle, or, you know, it just, for us, it was a reasonably good time. The 60s were, it's harder for me to remember the 60s and the 70s.
Because you didn't pay attention as much.
I was working all the time and raising a family, and that's
Right.
that's what I concentrated on.
Is that like what most
Yes.
mothers or
Yes.
women focused on?
Yes.
That was what they set out to do in life.
Yep. Just to, because some mothers didn't work, and and I didn't when I had small children. You know, after they got a few years on.
Did you
them.
work for the farm after? You worked for the farm?
I worked in the grocery store downtown after Kim was born, and then again after Steve was born, and finally they said they would like to have me come to work on the farm, and so I did. I worked on the farm from then on.
Was that common? Like, were women's rights so, like, were found, or, like, were they still in process of being, like, built?
I don't know how to answer that. Around here, I think women made their own choices.
They were equal around here, so
Yeah, I would say.
unlike in the big city, like, women were supposed to stay home, supposed to...
I think by the 60s that was over with.
That was over with.
I would say so.
So we're talking about all this technology increase. Did you ever watch like the first man or Neil Armstrong land on the moon?
Mm-hmm.
Was that big?
Oh, of course it was.
How did
It was to me.
it was to
There
you?
was a lot of people that felt it was a waste of money. I just thought it was,
Interesting.
oh yeah.
Did you like, how did Americans think about it? Like, you said it was a waste of money, but did you think it
think
was
a
for a
few-
good cause, or?
I think they were proud that we could do that. You know, that we were intelligent enough to come up with the means to put a man on the moon. Just think of it. That's quite a thing.
Mm. How, like, what were your thoughts, like, when it was happening? Were you actually watching? Like, I know they had, like, telecasts of them in the spaceship on the moon, like, once a week or something.
I don't remember that. I just remember, of course, the famous line of one.
One
I can't
one step for man,
Yeah, once.
something like that.
Yeah, you'd have to look that up. But and of course, the Neil Armstrong just died,
Mm.
which is he was a young man
How old was he? Do you remember?
in his 20s, I think. So yeah, it was just, to me, it was unbelievable that we could do anything like that.
Well, that's all my questions that I have, but we kind of went off topic, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It's good. It's interesting to know more stuff about, like, the local instead of, like, how the whole America.
Yeah, because like I said, I, for one, I don't know about other people, but if you were a working mother, your life was coming home and taking care of your children and grocery shopping and taking care of bills and
Did you have a stressful life? Like, what do you think it was more stressful to be a man or a woman?
in our business, I would say it was equal because I worked right out there sometimes like a man. And, you know, I worked all winter in the potato house and worked the harvester. I've even rode the planter and, you know, things like that.
But then you'd have to come home and cook and clean
That's
and take
right.
care of the
Have
kids.
complete responsibility of all of that, and your grandfather didn't. He had a lot more playtime than I did. I didn't have playtime.
And you still think it was equal stress? Because, wow.
Well, I guess the more we talk about it, I'm going to have to say no.
Oh,
I
that's
think
what
it was
I was thinking.
More stress on the women. In my case, it was, I think. Because, you know.
Because after a long, hard day at work, you'd have to go deal with the little punks that run
That's right.
around and cook and clean
Mhm.
while Grampy was out.
Bowling
I guess,
and
bowling.
having
Bowling?
fun.
Is that what he did for fun?
Yes.
Was that a big thing back in the 60s?
Yes.
Very big?
He belonged to 2 bowling teams. And he was on the fire department. And
Was there a women's bowling team?
There was, but
Were you interested in bowling?
I would have been if I'd had a babysitter or... The men just didn't do the things that they do now. They didn't stay home at night so that the woman could go somewhere. If you were going to go somewhere, you had to figure it out.
Right. So, is that what else they did for fun? Like, what else would you do for fun around here other than bowling and go to dances and go snowmobiling?
Of course, hunting and fishing for the men. And some of the women, if they were so minded. I can't think of anything else that we...
So basically, your everyday life consisted of taking care of family.
Mine did.
So you didn't have enough, like, as much time to go do all
No.
that stuff.
No.
Were you happy about that, or disappointed?
Resented it sometimes.
Regretted it? Do you wish, like, you did things differently?
I don't know what I could have done differently. You know,
Have,
looking
like, less
back.
kids, maybe?
Pardon?
Have less kids, maybe?
No, I only had 3, so that wasn't...
Was that a lot back then? Because I know that's a lot now.
No, it wasn't. That was average. Yeah. And some families had more, you know. But now people really stop and think about, am I
Right.
going to be able to bring this kid up? Am I going
Right.
to
Because the
Because you're-
economy's so bad now.
Yeah, and you're expecting your kids to go to college.
Right.
And back then, it was just kind of, you know, If
Was
they,
there as much planning like for your kid?